My second Bambu P1S just arrived, and it's time to talk about why it's here and why I'm shifting away from being a Prusa print farm to a Bambu Labs shop. Hi, I'm Mark and welcome back to my workshop. Today we're going to do something I haven't really done before on this channel, and it's kind of a 3D printer review. We're going to be talking about the differences between the Prusa MK4 and the Bambu P1S, but we're going to look at it from a different lens, which is that of a small business owner and a consumer. Now let's get something clear before we get started. This review is entirely independent. It's not sponsored, nor is it endorsed in any way. I've purchased both of my Bambu P1S entirely, and I've purchased 3 of the 4 Prusa machines you can see behind me. The MK4 was won in a competition and was donated by Michael from Teaching Tech. I have no affiliation with either Bambu nor Prusa. Let's start by saying I'm not a Prusa fanboy. No, seriously, I'm not. While I might have a lot of Prusa printers behind me, it's not because of the brand. I'm a fan of technology that just works. It's why I use Windows instead of a Mac. No, seriously, I find Macs unintuitive to use. And also I work for Microsoft in my day job, so it's why I use an iPhone instead of an Android, and it's why up until the last 6 months I've been an exclusively Prusa shop. Prusa just works. It's a reputation that is hard-earned and well justified. The Mark 3S that I've got over here has over 100 print days on it, and that's after I accidentally reset it. My 2 Prusa Minis have just worked for the entire time I've had them too. Prusa, is that how you say it? Prusa? 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 Now it just doesn't sound like a real word anymore. These 3 Prusa cameras have been churning out parts of my inverse kinematic mini mixer for the last couple of years. They are ultra reliable. I hit print, I get parts. It's great for production line, single color printing. The prints are not perfect, but frankly they're pretty good. It's obvious they are 3D printed, but for the mixer kits I'm offering, that's not a big concern. I also have a Mark IV behind me, and for transparency, this is my second Mark IV after receiving a Lemon and having a replacement sent by Prusa. It just worked out of the box the second time round, and the print quality is a tremendous step up from the Mark 3S and the Minis, to the point that with the right filament, you can't tell that the object is 3D printed. Prusa printers are consistently reliable, and that comes at a premium, but that was a premium I was happy to pay when there really isn't another option. And until recently, there wasn't really another option, and I think from the title of this video, you can guess what that option is. At the high end of the consumer or prosumer market, there are really only 2 options, Prusa and Bambu. But it's a little bit funny because the audience that Bambu was attracting was the audience that Prusa was attracting until recently. Prusa's always been the hassle-free option for 3D printing, but it guaranteed you a good experience with excellent support, resulting in reliably good prints. I've heard the expression, the Apple of 3D printing, used in relation to Prusa printers. But recently, it feels to me as though Prusa have become perceived as the company for engineers, for the tinkerers and enthusiasts. The problem with this comparison is that if Bambu is now Apple, well, Prusa isn't actually Android. Prusa printers are not built with engineers in mind. It was always intended to be the Apple. It just worked. Prusa's in a weird place where it is a premium price product, but it's no longer the premium product. So what happened? These guys, Bambu. Bambu showed up out of literally nowhere and have stolen the spotlight for 3D printing. And they did it by taking the success of the hassle-free, reliable printer and then making it even more accessible to people. At this point, I think it's important we talk about the difference between business and consumer needs. What a business needs, what a consumer needs, and what an enthusiast needs are very different things. Enthusiasts tend to be motivated by systems they can understand, build, change, upgrade, or tweak. They want to understand every single aspect of a system. Enthusiasts tend to be informed by different factors than business or consumer level users. They want to know the specifications of a printer, how far it can be pushed, and they want to spend time printing new parts to tweak or build out the system. I see tweets like this one. Frankly, owning every part of hardware and software comes at a cost, and that cost is time, energy, and education. The points you can see there are all valid points, and those points, in my mind, are definitely important to the enthusiasts. So with that in mind, I'll be focusing this review on comparing the current gen options from Bambu and Prusa. I'm not intending for this to be a review that caters to everyone. I'm aiming this squarely at consumers and business owners because that's where I see myself these days. I sell products that are 3D printed, and my customers could not care less if my products are 3D printed. Often my customers are surprised to find out my products are 3D printed, and that's the way I want to keep it. From the perspective of a business, the method of fabrication of objects has little, if any, bearing on the sales. There are some notable examples where that's not true, but for the most part, think about things that you buy. Is 3D printing going to be a differentiator, or will it make you buy that product? I personally don't want to spend hours troubleshooting printers. That's time that is taken away from my inventions. I don't want to manually set filament colors. I want to hit print on my orders. I don't want to have to change filament colors manually when I can do it automatically. I don't want to have to walk an SD card from my computer to my printers or walk over manually to check if they're still functioning as expected. And I'm not the guy who builds their own 3D printers anymore. I've done that. I've been there. I've got the shitty prints that come from that experience. I'm also not on my own. Tweets like this one from Cyanide Sugar, who is doing incredible things with Bambu printers, really show that tinkering is not for everyone. So with that in mind, this is not a review for the 3D printing community, and the folks in that space have already largely made up their mind on the topic. They know what they need. I love the 3D printing community. Folks, this one's not for you. This is a review for the guy at home who thinks about maybe printing out a fun toy for his kids, or the young 14-year-old like my son who just wants to make fishing lures and whistles to take to scouts, or the business owner who has products they just need to get out the door with a minimum of fuss, or the maker who has a wonderful idea they just need to get out of their heads with a machine to make it happen. All of these people have the same thing in common. It's a complete lack of interest in the how of 3D printing and an interest motivated by the output of 3D printing, and that's where I exist right now. I can fix a printer, I can troubleshoot something that's not working, but unless I have to, I don't want to. So let's talk about the printers. The two I'm going to focus on are the Bambu P1S and the Prusa MK4. These are both current generation printers with very similar specifications, but very different capabilities. I'm not going to spend time talking about the specifications. If you need those, there are a bunch of videos out there that review the printers from a technical perspective. The only thing important to me is that these printers are similar build size, volume, speed, and should have similar capabilities. So let's put them side by side. Starting off with multicolor printing. If you had asked me a year ago if multicolor printing was important, I would have laughed at you and said, it was a fad. Then I bought a Bambu P1S to speed up my prototyping, and 6 months later, I have products like this one that I sell on Etsy. It wouldn't be possible without multicolor printing. Both of these printers can technically print multicolor. Sort of. Bear with me. The Bambu P1S supports multicolor printing with their AMS or automatic material system. The Prusa MK4 supports multicolor printing with the MMU3, which is short for the Multi-Material Unit V3, which at the time of recording is not out yet. And I don't have a date on when that upgrade kit is going to be available so that my Prusa MK4 can work with multiple colors. The Bambu AMS supports up to 16 colors. The Prusa MMU3 supports up to 5 colors. The Bambu AMS is a fully enclosed system. The Prusa MK4 with MMU3 is not. From a humidity perspective alone, that's not good enough for me. I live in an extraordinarily humid and hot location. I'm sweating right now. And my filament only lasts a few days when outside of an enclosure. Sure, I can go and build or buy an enclosure, but with the Bambu AMS, I don't have to. The Bambu AMS automatically identifies my filaments and their colors for me and feeds that information back to the slicer. I don't need to remember which filament is in one of the 4 through 16 filament slots. And if you've got 16 slots, do you really want to remember which filament is in which slot? That's what I need to do with the Prusa MMU3. It requires me to remember which filament is in which slot. And until you've not had to do this, you have no idea how refreshing it is. Let's move on to controls and workflow. We've already touched on multicolor support from the printers. That naturally extends out into the slicers, which are Prusa Slicer and Bambu Studio respectively. Bambu Studio is based upon the open source Prusa Slicer, which should make it feel like a rip-off or a bad quality imitation. However, it's not actually the case. It's actually better designed. It has significant UI tweaks and usability improvements that really make a difference in day-to-day use. And a key example of this is the workflow to load a filament and print with it. With Prusa, after you've loaded your filament into the printer, you need to specify which filament is in which slot, what type of filament it is, and then manually set the color. Then you can start painting or printing. With Bambu, all of that is automatically done for you, which minimizes the largest cause of errors for any system. Human error. You don't need to specify ABS, PLA, or PETG. The slicer knows about it from RFID tags embedded in the filament rolls. You don't need to specify purple, red, or black. Bambu Studio already knows what color the filament is. Another example of workflow is painting the models. With Bambu Studio, it's a simple what you see is what you get style approach. It's very easy to use. You can select an entire object to be a specific color, or you can paint it using a myriad of tools. and those tools are pretty intuitive and easy to use. With Prusa Slicer, it really feels a lot more cumbersome and I don't have the same capabilities. That trend continues with Bambu Studio innovating beyond Prusa Slicer with real support of SVG or vector image file types. Using an SVG means that labels, logos, or text can be heavily customized and embedded straight into a print. Prusa Slicer supports SVGs, but the support is actually quite limited, resulting in if I load an SVG, it shows up as a solid object rather than an object with multiple different layers. Prusa Slicer doesn't allow me to paint the vector's layers or objects or even the triangles of that vector, whereas Bambu Studios allows me to do that. In fact, it allows me to load the vector as an object, and that gives me a huge amount of control. We also need to talk about the control support for printers. Prusa printers are quite obviously designed to be self-contained printing systems that work from an SD or USB card. That paradigm was fine, until it wasn't any longer. When was the last time you needed to use a USB drive or SD card for anything except for a digital camera? Long gone are the days of needing physical media to transport digital content. And so it's really surprising, at least to me, that that paradigm lasted so long in the 3D printing industry. With the Mark IV though, Prusa does support Wi-Fi. It comes with a Wi-Fi chip by default. Unfortunately, the onboarding experience for that Wi-Fi, it's a bit crap. This is it. You put a USB drive in, you generate a credentials file, you take it back to your PC, you edit the file in a text editor, save it, unload the USB drive, put it back into the printer, upload the credentials file, that'll get Wi-Fi online. From there to get it online, you need to connect it to Prusa Connect or Prusa Link, so you'll need to navigate to the Prusa Connect or Prusa Link area. You'll need to get the authentication key in order to authenticate with Prusa Connect or Prusa Link, or you can use a QR code that's displayed on the display of the printer in order to connect. It's even a lot just to say it. That QR code is actually a really nice touch, but these days onboarding a device to an online system should not be that hard. In fact, onboarding a $4 smart light bulb from AliExpress is a better experience than a multi-$1,000 3D printer. A bigger problem is that while it now has Wi-Fi, the integration back into the slicer is very much lacking. The experience within Prusa Slicer is to upload the printer. I can upload some code and kick off a print, but after that there is zero feedback on the status of the printer. There's no ability to monitor the printer or even to see if the print is finished. If you want to do that, you can, but you need to invest time and energy into Prusa Connect, which is Prusa's answer to print farm control. But it's not the same as it being built natively into the slicer, however. Bambu Studio has all of that built in. If you hit print, it automatically takes you over to the devices tab after the print starts so that you can view the printer through the camera. Honestly, the implementation of the camera system is terrible. It's like a bad 90s webcam. At least it's there, it's functional, and lets you monitor the print from your desk. If I wanted the same level of control over the Prusa Mark IV, as mentioned, I'd need to set up Prusa Connect, but even then it won't have a camera unless I purchase it and set it up manually. That leads us on to talking about current expectations and experiences. And with the rise of smartphones in the last decade or so, everything has an app. Heck, even that $4 light bulb from AliExpress has an app these days. And I think it's odd that app-controlled 3D printers really haven't been a thing, but I still think it's worth talking about. Bambu has released an app called Bambu Handy, and what that means is that I can use that app to view the status of my print, I can cancel the print, I can change colors, I can kick off a print remotely, and I can do it all from my phone. In fact, I can even just open the app on my phone and check to see that I haven't had a printing error by just loading up the camera that's built into the device on my phone. And that's actually really handy. Prusa doesn't have an app that I'm aware of. I can load Prusa Connect in my browser and kick off a print, but I'm still very limited in that if I haven't taken that extra time and expense to purchase and set up a camera, I can't tell whether or not that print was successful. I actually quite like Prusa Connect. It is actually far better for kicking off prints and viewing the statistics of the devices, but it is definitely a print farm management tool rather than a tool aimed at helping users monitor a single printer or very small farm. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the same conveniences as an app. Sure, I can fire up connect.prusa.com in the browser on my phone, and I have done that, but it's still not as good an experience as an app would be. The next thing I want to talk about is my least favorite thing to discuss: the cost. Let's talk about money, because this section is going to be a clincher for a lot of folks. Let's start with Prusa. Let's break the cost down. The printer itself, $1,099 USD. The MMU that enables color printing, $299 USD. Shipping. Okay, I live in Australia, so shipping is pretty hefty at $157. That's a total of $1,555 USD, and I think it'll be about 2 weeks until I have the printer in my workshop. Let's compare that to the Bambu P1S and AMS. It's $949 USD for the printer and AMS, about $30 US for shipping, which works out to $980 USD. And guess what? It'll be here in a few days. The Prusa is nearly $600 USD more expensive. That might be a reasonable thing if you're buying the premium product that does everything, but here it's not the case. We're paying more for a less feature-rich product. And you know what? It's really about to get worse. Because I chose to apply this to the Bambu P1S, we're not even comparing apples to apples. It's not the right comparison. My Bambu P1S and the Mark IV are printers that I own, so that's what I base this review on. To compare it realistically, we need to look at different Bambu printers. And that would be comparing the Bambu Labs A1 and AMS combo to the Prusa Mark IV and MMU3. They're both bed slingers, they're not enclosed, there's no filament housing, and they're similar size and capabilities. The Bambu A1 has all of the features that I mentioned earlier, except it doesn't have an enclosure for the AMS. And the price for the A1, $559 USD plus $30 shipping. That works out to $589. $589 for the Bambu A1 combo compared to $1,555 USD for a far less feature-rich printing system, and it's an apples-to-apples comparison on a level ground. When we start to look at it this way, it's really not looking that good. Cost also segues nicely into the next area, which is consumables, which of course have their own cost associated. 3D printing requires consumables, and it's not just filament, although that's a pretty big slice of it. Slice, see what I did there? Both Bambu and Prusa have a huge marketplace of consumables. I don't want to compare filament, as I don't really think that's a fair comparison. However, I will add that I get roughly the same results out of Prusament that I get from Bambu's in-house filaments. However, Prusament here in Australia is not economical to buy, as it's more than double what I pay for other filaments here in Australia. So let's look at hardware. A hot end, for example. An entire new hot end from Bambu costs $34.99 USD. That's pretty reasonable. Prusa, as far as I can see, however, don't sell an entire hot end assembly for the Mark IV. Instead, you need to buy all the parts, which include a heatsink, an extruder, a nozzle, a fan, a thermistor, and a heater. And when you put them together, that adds up to about 150 USD. Spare parts are a valid question when we start to talk about longevity too. Prusa have established that their printers are robust and can last for years. As I mentioned, my Mark III's has well over 100 days print time, probably more like 200 or 300. It has produced over 80 of my mixer kits that I sell on Etsy, and each of those take around 30 hours of printing. That's 100 days on its own, and it's been done without requiring anything more than a replacement nozzle. That is solid. The reliability of Prusa printers is an engineering achievement that is not to be understated, and it's why Prusa has that reputation for reliability. Bambu, on the other hand, well, it's really too early to tell how well these machines are going to perform long term. My P1S has about 50 days print time on it, and the only thing it's needed so far is a replacement nozzle. It is good at the moment, but there's nowhere to tell how it will be running 2 years from now. I am relatively confident that my Prusa machines will be working just fine in 2 years' time, and if they're not, well, that just brings us to another area that I'd like to talk about, which is post-sales support. Prusa has an excellent track record, and I can speak to that firsthand. I've only ever needed to raise one support ticket for my 4 printers, and that was for my first Mark IV. After a little bit of back and forward with support, they sent me a replacement, and since that point, the replacement has been nearly flawless straight out of the box. The only thing that's been going wrong with it is a slightly noisy bearing. Shane from Prusa has been amazing at helping out and ensuring that any problems get sorted and sorted quickly. Prusa's service and community engagement is very, very strong. Bambu, on the other hand, well, it's mixed. I've heard good things. I've heard terrible things. They definitely do not yet have a reputation as a company that does excellent support. In fact, the reputation I'm seeing seems to indicate they really need to work hard on that area. I also haven't touched on the brand or business aspects of either of these businesses, and frankly, I'm not really sure it's an area I want to comment on. There's a weird rivalry going on between Bambu and Prusa, and frankly, It's not necessary. Bambu has displayed some rather questionable ethical practices, and Prusa's response to those really hasn't been stellar. From a brand perspective, Bambu does feel a bit faceless, without much of a personality. Prusa, on the other hand, well, it's got Joseph Prusa as its figurehead, and due to heavy community involvement from folks like Mikkel, Sousa, Shane, and Joseph, it's hard not to see that brand as having a personality. And personally, I really like that personality. It's a reason I want to support that company. That brings us to the conclusion. The purpose of this video is to inform consumers and business users like myself who wish to purchase a printer and could use an objective opinion on the matter from someone who considers himself relatively informed. I've talked a lot about the differences and the similarities between these two. They are both the high end of the consumer and arguably the only two reasonable options available to consumers and businesses. What this really shows, though, is printing is all about the ecosystem and the workflow. And if we look at any devices that are consumer and business friendly, they are seldom about the device in isolation. Printing needs to be looked at as a combination of hardware, software, consumables, and usability. Bambu is clearly leading here with innovation that just isn't available from Prusa currently. The only area Prusa really has the edge is with its support, brand, and community engagement. Those are fantastic, but they're not reason enough for me to be recommending an investment into the Prusa ecosystem currently. Obviously, with any purchase, it's important to make the decision that's right for you. Unfortunately for consumers and businesses, I can't see a use case where Bambu Labs would not be the obvious choice. The entire ecosystem from hardware to filament to software is more robust, it's more feature-rich, and the capabilities of the Bambu ecosystem far exceed any competitor currently. While I've said at the start of the video that I'm not a Prusa fanboy, I do have a soft spot in my heart for them, and as it was due to Prusa that I went from being a tinkerer to having a production capability enough for me to launch products. I actually love Prusa, and I have a message to Joseph Prusa, if you're listening, which I kind of doubt. You've probably got better things to do than take note of the opinion of a small-time maker way on the far side of the planet. Joseph, you and your team need to play catch-up. I think you've done more than arguably any other person on the planet for 3D printing. I love Prusa Research, and I want you and your company to be successful. However, I feel like your products have fallen behind and continue to be designed by engineers who no longer understand the market and where it's going. A great printer on its own is no longer enough. You're no longer competing with Creality, who just copied what you did and generally released an inferior product. You're now competing with innovators who understand that printing extends beyond the immediate machine. So it's time to play catch up. Investments into integrating the slicer with the printer, user interface, app control, and simple features like RFID tagging on filaments are not just a bonus, they are core to the success of 3D printing in the growing marketplace. For us, the consumer, this is actually great news. Printers right now are the best they've ever been, and a large part of that is due to competition. Competition favors consumers. Competition between companies translates into a greater quantity of products and services, a better quality of goods, and ultimately, lower prices. Bambu coming onto the scene in such a strong way with solid innovation is a massive win for consumers. And this is a watershed moment in 3D printing that we're probably going to look back on as one of the pivotal moments in 3D printing becoming ubiquitous. Anyway, I think you've got my opinion on this matter pretty solidly in this video. For the time being, for my own small-scale production, I'll continue to invest in the Bambu ecosystem. As I said earlier, I'm not a fanboy, I'm whatever works. And that goes two ways, meaning I'm not adverse to a switch back to Prusa if they can compete at the same level in the future. These are my opinions and my opinions only. If you have thoughts on this topic, I'd love to see them in the comments section and would welcome views that challenge my own opinion. Thank you for watching. Until our next adventure, stay curious and happy making.